fuck's sake, no. It's like, bye.
No, you ruined it.
Yeah, it's like, next.
Oh,
All
by
right,
the way,
yes.
I bought a camera.
Hello, nice to meet you. ¿Qué haces, güey?
It's me.
The
How's it
freak,
going?
how are you? Really good.
I'm okay. Hey, we'll always be friends, Max. I love you. I think you're a great personality. You know, I think you're a great host. I think you have a great show. So, you know,
Oh yeah,
it's
definitely.
not going to be anything like hostile or anything. But sometimes, you know, I could be a little bit of a smart ass.
It's okay. It's fine, and you're always respectful. And I mean, so far I didn't see anything today. But and to be fair, I didn't have my regular setup because I always have the screen I'm broadcasting like down here in my notebook screen, and I have, because I'm almost blind, I have the chat in my bake screen on the top. But because I had the video there, I was some really looking at the chat and I like distracted, so I was catching snippets of conversations and interjecting. So let me welcome Tony. Can we get a sound check? Can we hear you now?
Hopefully you can.
Yes, sir. How
Did you
are
hear that?
Yes.
I'm okay. How are you?
Really well. Really well. All right. We have the freak, and it's 3 atheists. So let's try not to like gang up on him. I think that we should keep it fair. Does anyone want to kick it off with anything that we covered today or any stuff like that? Did you have anything in mind you wanted to talk about, the freak?
Well, we were getting down pretty heavy in the chat, so I guess anything in there or whatnot. But you know, I like to field questions, I think, and I think I'll start by saying that I actually have first person witness of God. So I like to think that I have answers that a lot of like clergy may not.
Well, I was a Christian for 30 years and I thought that I had first-hand experience of God, and it turned out that I was actually just fooling myself. But I would be interested. So the Bible claims that Jesus rose from the dead after 3 days. Are you aware of anybody else rising from the dead after 3 days?
I mean, he resurrected the girl. He resurrected Lazarus.
Yep. So did Apollonius so did Apollonius, right?
I'm sorry, say again.
So there was a mystic in first century Rome called Apollonius who also raised
of
people from the dead.
I think.
There's a tale. There's a story in God. What is his name? The Greek god of medicine. Not Asclepius.
Asclepius.
Yeah. So there's a story about a follower of Asclepius who stopped stop me if you've heard this one before, saw a funeral where everybody was sad, went over to look at it, inspected the body, and then determined that the body actually wasn't dead, spoke to the body and was able to raise the person and restore them to consciousness. So these stories of people being able to raise people from the dead were quite common in early first century classicism, and indeed the opponents of Christianity found nothing at all unusual in the fact that Christ was claimed to have raised people from the dead or claimed to have risen from the dead, because lots of movements made these claims about their central figure. So why should I disbelieve all of the other claims but believe your claim?
Because Jesus predicted his own resurrection and he declared the Father in the temple.
The Bible was written several hundred years after it happened, so that wasn't a prediction. That was writing down something that had already happened. Sorry.
That's an assumption.
No, it's not. That's the truth.
That,
Hey,
that's the best evidence. The best analysis that we have suggests that these stories were not written down until afterwards. But
Yeah.
even if we accept, I've never understood as a Christian how that alleged prediction is right. He died at noon on Friday, and he was alive again before dawn on the Sunday. That's not 3 days later. That's less than 48 hours. I'm wondering how 3 days corresponds to a period of less than 48 hours. Also, if we accept that as real, looking at the Gospels, can you tell me who went to find the temple empty? The tomb empty, and how many angels were there present?
All right. As far as I know, it was either one or both Marys, and there was at least one, if not two angels, but I don't think there's any, more than that. It could have just been one.
The answer varies depending on which gospel you read, right?
Yep.
Probably.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
And
So they
also
don't, when you were
this,
saying earlier that it's a coherent story, it's not a coherent story.
well, it's coherent in the narrative of the story. It's not necessarily the eyewitnesses are the same, because if it were, you would say it was a copy and a paste. So everyone has their own testimony.
Yes, but
More or less.
but you can't. But can you in the modern era? Can you? So you're saying that that we should. Apollonius was also famous for making prophecies that came true. So why are his prophecies not proof that his resurrections are real?
What other claims
Why
did he
Jesus's prophecies proof that his resurrection is real?
make? Okay, what is Apollonius or whatever? What promises or offers or claims did he make that were part of his story? Like did
well,
he just want
I'll
a
have to-
cult?
I'll
Did
have-
he just want to be recognized for doing stuff? What was his purpose? Like, what was he doing?
Well, he was very much Apollonius of Tyana. Was a Pythagorean philosopher. I think this is the one.
Yeah, I shared the link not too long ago to the Wikipedia entry. So if you
Yep.
scroll up in the chat, it's there. Yeah, Apollonius of Tyana.
Yep.
Ooh, the man, the legend, the Isa. Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
What's up, man?
I'm chilling. I'm
See you
here.
on the channel all the time. Much respect. So, just wanted to say that. But if this guy, the Apollonius guy or whatever, he doesn't say that he can offer you eternal life,
Because
forgiveness,
that's
redemption, then what do I care about the guy for?
Oh, okay. Hold on. Because now you're judging Apollonius based on your own paradigm. The reason why they weren't offered eternal life is because the Greeks didn't have that conception of, like, to the Greeks, when you die, you go down, right? And if you were extra good, you had a little cordoned off section, the Elysium fields, in which you just had like a little nicer version of the underground. So they had a different conception of the afterlife.
Yeah.
All right,
Conceptions
and
of
did any
eternal
his-
life and. Sorry, carry on.
I was going to say, did any of his disciples or his students, were they able to do any miracles or continue his teachings or anything?
Yes. Yeah, there is an illusion here that Christ was the only one of these figures that existed in the first century. That he is a singular and unusual figure.
Mhm.
And in retrospect, that is not reality. The reality was that there were a lot of people who claimed pretty much exactly the same things that Jesus did, with some variations, and inspired movements just the way Jesus did. Now, Jesus's was the one that became successful, and the church doesn't like to discuss the fact that actually, if you look back at the history of the time, it was he just won the lottery. He was lucky. The cult of Jesus was just extremely lucky. It was no different than a bunch of other cults that existed at the same time. The Essenes, there's a bunch of other sort of messianic religious movements from the early first century CE, and Christianity is just one of them. It's not remarkable, it's not unusual, and the critics of Christianity pointed this out. They pointed out that we get these elements from these other cults, and if you're telling us that you're right and they're wrong, well then that just makes both of you wrong. Because you can't both be right. So it's very easy from a distance of 2,000 years, with all of the other various interpretations and various rival sects having been rendered extinct in various ways, to say, well, Christianity is unique. There was never anything else like it. But it's just not true.
Mhm.
I feel like you're one step away from saying it's a Jewish conspiracy to subvert the Roman Empire to some sort of Jewish narrative, that this guy just happened to get lucky, even though the Jews denied Jesus Christ. It's like, all right, how about this? The Quran talks about.
I just want to respond to that. I just want to respond to that. It's not a good or constructive form of argument to try telling me what I think.
No, I just said how I felt. Because,
okay.
I mean,
you're saying
that there was a bunch of Jesus running around, doing stuff or whatever, and he just happened to win the lottery. We just happened to split our timeline by the guy. We just happened to, talk about him today. And Hebrew just happens to be
somebody had to win the lottery.
Survived antiquity.
Somebody had to win the lottery. The fact that the one who won the lottery doesn't mean that he's any better than the other people who had tickets in the lottery. If they had won, we would be here today making the same arguments about them. How can it be that they survived 2,000 years? So that's not a logical argument. Excuse me.
Okay, so did any of these other people? Okay, go ahead, Max.
No, I was hearing like a little alarm in the background, but I'll let you continue in a second. I want to ask you a question. But Isa, why are you dressed so nicely? You're looking fire.
Well, I'll show you something. I have to show you something here.
Okay.
So, I'm in a hotel that was paid for because
tower.
I won an award.
Wait, hold on. Hold on.
Sweet.
Hold it there. Give me 1 second. Pennsylvania Commission for Community College 2025 Open Pennsylvania Academic Team Isa Kabir for outstanding performance, Community College of Philadelphia. Woohoo! Yes! Everyone,
Congratulations.
Thank you.
spam Isa emojis in the chat. If you don't, you're banned. Isa emojis in the chat. Let's go! Congratulations, Isa. That's awesome.
Yeah, I won an award and I won like a full scholarship. So, yeah, super.
Woohoo!
Excellent.
Yes.
Top work.
Thank you, friends. I appreciate you all.
That's so cool. No wonder you're.
Because we had to be dressed up. We had to be dressed up for the.
Of course. I was between like Isa is at an event or he got like a really top tier booty call. But you know me, always the
I don't mind. I always find it cute.
Always like Isa got a sugar mama. He's really
Yeah.
stepped up.
That's so funny.
He looks like Welcome Back Cotter.
Oh God.
The freak. I wanted to ask
Yeah.
you. You said you had some personal experience with God. Would you mind telling us that story?
Yeah, I'll do it real quick. I mean, I was seeking God. I prayed. He revealed himself to me in the spirit realm, and unfortunately, he sent me back. But my avatar is the best kind of description that I could visually find that kind of would show what the Father God looks like.
Okay, can I
No.
just address something I find extremely concerning?
Yes.
Okay. I find the phrase, unfortunately, he sent me back, to be extremely concerning, because that suggests that a spiritual existence, which is to say a non-physical experience, in other words, death, is to be preferred over life. And if we're taking that to its logical conclusion, you may, a person who believes that might be inclined to make that decision for other people that they care for, that they are better off dead in a spiritual world than they are alive. I find that outlook to be extraordinarily troubling.
Mm-hmm.
PhD, do you mind if I ask you a quick question?
Go ahead.
Yep.
I have another question after.
PhD Tony, you were a theist. How did you
Yes.
theologically engage these things as a theist?
So I was born into a Catholic family, and my argument was, my basic religious conversion at the time when I was a child. There were lots of famines in Africa, and lots of advertisements about starving children in Africa who were clearly at death's door. And it occurred to me, as a child, I could not accept the randomness of this, that I had been born into a wealthy family in a prosperous country, and these children, through no fault of their own, had been born into starvation, suffering, and death. And my mind recoiled at the randomness of it. I argued, therefore, that there must be some afterlife in which such an injustice must be remedied, in which some form of remedy must be enacted. It also occurred to me, because the fact that I was born into a Christian household was basically a random happenstance. If I'd been born into a Muslim household, I'd be Muslim. If I'd been born because I was a pliant child, if I was born into a Hindu household, I'd be a Hindu. Because I just would have gone along with what my parents were telling me. So it also occurred to me that God could not be fixated on the niceties of religious worship, that he had to have a higher, more universal standard. That being said, I was not convinced that I could prove this to other people, nor was I convinced that I should be making decisions for other people. And this is something that I think is often misunderstood in the modern world, is a lot of religious people, Will Duffy included, think that it is appropriate to design legislation to enforce their religious beliefs on others. That's not what the law is for. That's a grotesque misunderstanding of what the legal system is supposed to be about. You do not get to do that, and you would be unhappy if other religions did it to you. So the reason I didn't necessarily, I could not prove that there was life after death. I believed as a child that it must happen, but as a teenager, and as an adult, I understood that I just couldn't prove it. So making any decisions on the basis of something you can't prove, not a goer. And I'm just, it's not that I'm trying to pick a fight with the freak. I'm just concerned because other people have made that argument. There was the famous massacre at Montsegur, where a priest is quoted as saying, whether or not it's historically valid is another question. But the quote was, "Kill them all. God will know His own." And if you believe Christianity, why is that wrong? If you kill an innocent person, you're just sending them on to their eternal reward. If you're killing a guilty person, you're ridding the world of somebody who is trying to actively harm. In this case, it was the Albigensians, actively harm the potential salvation of Christians. So if you look at it logically, DeFreak, would you see that a person could get to that argument, could get to the point of, well, if I accept as a fact that God exists, that the afterlife is real, then killing a person isn't actually that bad a thing, because if they're a good person, especially if they're a good person, if they're a good person, they'll go to heaven and they'll go to their reward.
Well, that's not taking into account the matters of the heart and the intent and the motive and the good and the evil of the, which is the fruit that they ate from, which is what all this is actually playing out of. Also, I don't know about you, but if I had a choice to destroy something that God created, I would not destroy it.
Well, yeah, I'm inclined to agree, but I was hoping for something. Do you understand the logic that somebody can come to? Right, you've presented a sort of very emotive argument, and my question was more about the logic of it. You don't want to do it, and you don't think other people should do it, but that isn't really a logical argument, is it?
No, but the logic is flawed because you're thinking about the soul that would go to heaven as opposed to the judgment that would come upon the person doing the action, and both need to be accounted for.
But if I accept that I'm going to go to hell, let's suppose that I accept that, and I'm willing to sacrifice myself by killing good people. Why, okay, I'm going to go to hell for it, but I'm saving souls, surely. I'm guaranteeing that these people, and according to Christianity, as long as I confess my sins before I die, I will go to heaven too, surely.
I think that's a little bit of a misnomer about Christianity. I mean, you can't just run amok and then be like, hey, I repent now or whatever. It even says that in the Quran. It doesn't really work that way. It needs to be a true repentance. It's basically an acknowledgement of the authority of God. Because if we sit there and we go into heaven without any kind of overseer, some sort of guidance, we would destroy that place just like we destroy the earth.
Could you?
Okay, is God not powerful enough to prevent that?
Well, yeah, but we're still living through the testimony of the good and the evil.
What does that mean?
It means that there's going to be good and there's going to be evil in this place because our testimonies are what is hashing out those nuances for the rest of eternity.
So you're
Is there good and evil in heaven?
Forgive your sins?
I'm sorry. Say again. I heard two different people talking. So,
yeah, I was just asking. So God's not powerful enough to forgive you of your sins if you truly repent in the end?
Well, sure he is, but it's a
But
matter
you
of your
just said
heart.
he isn't. But you just said he isn't.
I'm saying that you're not going to be able to fake God out with, like some, oh, I'm sorry, I repent, whatever. I killed all these people intentionally, and I just planned on coming here and saying, hey, I showed up and I repent, and expect to be let into the door.
Well,
But how do you know what's
but
in someone else's
but
heart?
I don't necessarily. I'm just saying that's
Because you're just assuming that you're just assuming that they don't fully repent at the end.
well,
They might.
but my question is
maybe that's God's
more
judgment.
fundamental. In what way is killing somebody in order to guarantee their ascent to heaven an immoral act?
Because you're committing murder. And you're
But
destroying
then
what God created.
That's a legal definition, not a moral definition.
Well,
Well, I think I can bridge
you'll be
this.
judged for that person would be judged for it.
Yes, thou shalt
Okay,
not.
but I want to know. You say that they'll be judged for it.
Right.
I want to know why it is immoral.
Why you want to know why it's moral? I can't think of
why
any.
it's wrong.
I can't think of anything that would
this
be
is-
moral about that.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
God-
one of the commandments.
Okay, so what God says is moral. Okay, so
That-
are we back to the point where slavery is moral now? God
I
didn't
wouldn't-
say
I'm not catching
not
the,
to hold slaves. In fact, he gives instruction on how to keep slaves and rules for them. So is slavery moral because God said it is?
And is
I don't
polyamory
think that it was
normal?
moral.
Go ahead. Sorry.
You're saying that slavery wouldn't exist if there was no God, which is absurd.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. That's a complete straw man of my argument. My argument is God says in the Bible, and St. Paul says in the Bible, that slavery is not immoral, that slavery is not wrong. He gives instruction is given on how to keep slaves. So God said that. God's book says that. God's prophet says that. So why is slavery immoral?
Because the only other option is total genocide. Right? So when you win
I
a
beg your pardon?
war,
No.
the only other option is total and complete genocide. So those are the only options.
So
that
you're
you have.
saying at the end of World War II, our two options were to enslave the Germans or genocide them. Which did we do?
Neither, because we actually had central banking invented by then, which is actually the cure for slavery, debt slavery.
Pardon?
So when central banking was invented, everyone had access to debt, and not just a few people or whatever.
Right.
So
Who
you didn't have to,
invented central
you didn't have to
banking?
submit your body for the labor for the payoff of your debt anymore.
You've
Right,
been
but
saying
that's
they.
not
Who is they?
It's a bit of a category error on.
Central banks were around since the 1400s, dude.
It's not
So
it's not the same kind of.
I'm more interested in who is they, who invented central banking.
I'm not sure exactly, but I want to say somewhere in like 1880s or 90s, there was a group of whoever, and they came up with the central banking system.
Hold on.
Maybe the
because,
Federal Reserve or something.
No, but that comes way before. The Chinese had coins. As soon as we stopped with because the barter system, the trade, I will give you these 3 pelts for a little bag of rice. When that didn't cut it anymore, we started making coins, and it was a parallel development in different civilizations all across the world. So we just needed a way to create, we created the concept of currency due to the limitations of the trade system, right?
Okay.
But happened.
So I want to explore this a little bit more. Sorry, I want to explore this a little bit more. So in the 19th century, in the early 19th century, the British and the French had entered what were called the Napoleonic Wars. Actually, most of Europe was involved. In the end, the French were defeated. Were the French enslaved or destroyed?
I'm not sure because I don't know that particular scenario. So you're gonna have to tell me.
Neither.
I don't know that part
Neither
of history.
happened.
I don't know what happened.
Okay, so well, I'm saying that your claim, you've made a false dichotomy that when you win a war, you have a choice of enslavement or genocide. That's not true. It hasn't been true for millennia, and in fact, it was never true. You had the option of imposing the conditions that you wanted, whatever they might be. You could, for instance, force the people out of the land that they occupied. That is neither owning them nor genocidal. It could be termed ethnic cleansing, but it.
There's a parable in Luke 7.
Yes, I don't care, but thank you for that. Your statement was that when you beat somebody in war, you have only two options: slavery or genocide. Do you see now that that claim is false?
Well, I guess there are other options, but let me ask you this. How are you supposed to pay off debt back in the day if there was no central banking or a way of, allocating debt for or value debt to someone that you owed money to? It was just your body. It was just your labor.
You're talking indentured
No,
servitude
that's
then.
not true at all.
So anyhow,
That is a form of paying off. That is a form
Right.
of paying off debt. But people,
Right.
but the entire the entire system of records keeping was done so that you could keep track of who had paid and who had not. You didn't enslave them the instant that they hadn't paid. You gave them an opportunity to make payments later.
well, maybe it was all over the board. But you have in Luke 7, starting at verse 41, the parable of the slave who went to.
Can you
master
stop
and
quoting
begged for
scripture?
forgiveness.
It's not useful.
Well, I'm not preaching. I'm just saying.
Quoting scripture is not useful.
Why is it not useful? It applies directly to what you're asking about in slavery. He asked the master for forgiveness and he forgave him, and then he went and he wanted his debt from the guy that owed him less money. And then what ended up happening was the king or whatever sent that guy to prison for being a jerk. Okay, so when you're talking about debt and stuff like that, slavery was bound to happen until there was some sort of way for everyone to have access to debt.
And what was preventing African Americans from having access to debt in the early 19th?
Lack of central banking, I suppose.
No, there was a Bank of America.
Yeah, there was a Bank of America.
Well,
And
I
there
guess
was
they
also-
had
there
the
was also
assets
the-
other than their labor.
I beg your
Slavery
pardon?
has been. Oh,
I suppose they didn't have any assets other than their labor, right? But if you think that God
And
doesn't
why did they not
exist,
have any
but
assets?
slavery does, what does that say about mankind?
Well, given that God tells the Jews in the Bible to own slaves and how to own slaves, it says that God is entirely in favor of the slave trade. That's what it tells me about God.
yeah.
So you're
Here's
saying that there would be no slavery if there was no God, if there was a God.
No,
or
that's
whatever.
not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that God is in favor of slavery.
you want to quote scripture? Okay,
If
how
we-
about
if we
this?
take
How about hold on? Give me a minute. How about this? Leviticus 25:44 through 46. However, you may purchase male or female slaves from among the foreigners who live among you. You may also purchase the children of such resident foreigners, including those who have been born in your land. You may treat them as your property, passing them on to your children as a permanent inheritance. You may treat your slaves like this, but people of Israel, your relatives must never be treated this way. That is a blatant endorsement of slavery right there. There's other ones in Exodus that tell you how to treat your slave, how much to pay for them. Okay, there's tons of stuff in the Bible, in Exodus and Leviticus about, and Ephesians too. There's tons of stuff in there. 1 Timothy, there's a whole bunch of stuff. How to punish them, how to keep them for life by driving an awl through their ear. There's plenty of that. And slavery has been replete throughout human history in just about every culture. It's not about debt. It's not about debt. Debt is something different, okay? The Bible actually puts it as bond servant, okay? A bond servant is a servant that is like indentured servitude. They have a bond they must pay, okay? They owe you money. So they work for you until that bond is paid. There is a difference, okay? A bond servant is completely different than slave. Even in Koine Greek, even in the ancient texts, the original text, or well, as close as we can get, some of those, there is direct endorsement of slavery in the Bible that is not even has anything to do with being a bond servant or indentured servitude. So that is not a valid argument. Okay, slavery has always been around.
Okay, there you go. You're saying that the God of Israel is the cause of all slavery.
No, I'm not. I'm saying that it existed
No,
long
that's not what
before
we're saying at
God
all.
of Israel.
So then it's a wash. We can move on.
No, it isn't. It's the opposite. It's the opposite. It's a killer for you. What you're saying is that your God is no more moral than all of the people who owned slaves. That your God is just as immoral as every other slave owner in history. Well, thank you. Okay, I don't care now. So your argument is in fact self-defeating, and that you can't see it is the result of severe cognitive dissonance on your part. No one is saying that God is the cause of all slavery, because we don't believe God exists. So humans clearly cause slavery. The problem I have is that God wrote down 10 commandments, and thou shalt not keep slaves was not one of them. Neither was thou shalt not rape people. That was not one of them either. So for 10 commandments, 4 of them seem to be fixated on not calling him names, which seems petty and self-indulgent, if I'm being honest. He could have made some really quite bold and progressive legal innovations, but remained silent. He didn't even say, look, I understand that slavery might be an economic necessity, but you guys should really get rid of it as soon as possible. He didn't say that. And you've got to ask yourself, so if God was no better, morally no better than the slave owners, why are we listening to him? And I'll ask a number of other questions. Did God tell Abraham to kill his eldest kid? The Bible says that he did. That's a lie. God lied to Abraham. Why did God not accept both Cain's and Abel's sacrifices?
I can answer that.
What was it that compelled God to reject? Did you? What's your answer?
The Book of Melchizedek has the answer, and it is because Cain's offering did not have the sacrificial lamb.
Okay, but why does God need a sacrificial lamb?
Because it's a representation of the Christ.
But why can't God accept the other sacrifice anyway? If you had 2 kids who came to you and drew a picture, right, and said, "Look, Dad, here's our picture that we drew in that we drew in preschool, and we drew it for you," would you look at one of them and say it doesn't have a lamb in it and just throw it in the garbage?
Well, let's just say that lamb actually was the representation and actually the literal person of the Father.
So again, you're saying that God is constrained by law that he has chosen not to make explicit. Is that what you're saying?
What I'm
Or
saying is the lamb represents the
God
man
can't choose to
that,
accept that.
God became in order to forgive of the sins, and the Cain did not include that in the sacrifice.
What was God capable of accepting that sacrifice? Could God have chosen to accept that sacrifice?
I have to think about that.
You don't see
Because
how
if he
ridiculous
couldn't-
that is?
Because if he couldn't, he's not omnipotent, and if he can, then he's just refused to accept it because he's a dick.
Well, no, because Cain didn't honor him properly. That
Says you.
that's
Says
disrespectful.
What we're missing here is how screwed up is that? Why do you
Yeah,
need
it's
to
pretty
do
goddamn
that?
screwed up.
That's completely hideous. Why are you killing a child or an animal just because of some magic sky daddy? That's immoral in itself. Why are
Well,
you?
it's
I mean,
because they ate of
that's
the fruit.
ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, they ate of the
Did
fruit,
God-
and
does
and
God know
death
everything
and
that's going to
sin
happen?
Was introduced
Oh.
into the light of heaven. And this is what we're dealing with now.
okay.
Before
Did
we
God
get too
know-
far past it, can I say something really quickly?
Sure.
Yes.
And then PhD, I almost said PH Tony. But so this whole slavery existed because they didn't have debt is not true, because they had debt back then, and you were made a slave because of it. So I don't know how that gets you out of it. Central banking has only existed since probably the late 19th century. Some early forms of things that were kind of similar to central banking have existed since probably the 13 or 1400s. But
even
slavery
before that.
existed in human society, not because of those reasons that don't make any sense. Slavery existed because humans didn't have the technology to not enslave other humans. We had a bunch of people that we have to feed, a shit pile of work that needs to be done in order to do that, and nobody wants to fucking do it. Animals aren't enough to get it done. What do? What do you do when you don't have a combine harvester that can harvest 90 acres of corn a day? When you've only got 6 guys, you go get slaves. You go conquer people, and then their people who are strong and able-bodied become your slaves and do all of your work for you. That's why, despite the fact that slavery exists in some limited areas, slavery isn't commonplace in the world anymore, because we have machines now. It all has to do with machines. Technology.
Yeah.
Yep.
The other,
Well, I mean, I would agree. It's always been about cheap labor ever since Egypt and Israel. But if you're talking about when you owe somebody a debt back in the day, all you had was you couldn't give them a credit card, right? You had to pay them
Well, no shit.
somehow.
Plastic didn't
So
exist.
Right. So you became their property until they paid off that debt. That's just the way
Yeah,
it
and
was.
oftentimes people would pay off their debts, and then the person that they owed the debt to would be like, "Oh, but I've decided that you actually haven't paid it off. You're going to keep working for me." Because those who were enslaved, even if only because they had a debt, had no power. Who had all the power? The people that owned the slaves. Kind of like today, where the people that have all the power are those who own the factories and own the machines.
And pay
Leo,
slave wages.
Do me a favor. Turn down your mic just a little bit.
All right, so
volume or the
we're all
gain?
atheists here. That means that it's just man
It's the
doing
same-
that,
it's the same
and then the
thing.
Levitical law about slavery is actually mercy.
Well, I don't care what the laws about slavery are in the Bible. It is an objective fact that the Bible endorses slavery. That is an objective fact.
so if we
It's in
agree
there, you know, what
nowadays
you want
that
me to say?
slavery
It's
is
in there,
immoral,
But
yes,
they say that it's all God's fault. And that's just crazy, because mankind would have done it anyway. And according
Would
to
have
you,
done.
yes,
Wait, what? I'm
because you don't
sorry.
think
Can you
God
repeat
exists.
that? There was a mic issue that somebody had. Is my mic going
Yeah.
down or up?
Sorry about that. That was my mix up.
it was
Max,
So if
is
God
my
doesn't
mic going
exist, that
down
means
or
that
up?
all of slavery is a human being's fault.
Turn it
My
down.
mic is now. Well,
I-
is it louder or is it quieter?
No, I think it's the same.
Oh well, here let me.
But don't you have like a Yeti?
Yeah, I'm turning the volume button, but my mic used to be mounted on that side, and now it's mounted on this side, and so I want to make sure that I'm not turning the volume up rather than down. That's why I'm asking if my voice is changing at all.
No,
Am I any
you
quieter?
You
To
turn
me, it was a little bit quieter.
the
Okay,
left.
because I think I turned it down. I think
Yeah,
I can turn
perfect. Now it's perfect.
I'll turn the gain down just a bit. I'm sorry to freak. I'm really sorry about that. What were you saying?
What I'm saying is that slavery was going to be a feature, I guess you could say, of mankind.
Yeah,
regardless
I
if
think
there was
so.
God
I
or
think that
not.
if there's any intelligent species out there that is intelligent like us, even if they're way more advanced, there was a point in that the history of that species where they had to enslave others. I think that I'm not going to say that's like a law of highly intelligent species, but I think any species that has the capabilities that we have to build economies and all that stuff will have had done slavery at some point, probably very quite early in their species history, until they developed technology and machines such that they could eliminate the need for that human labor in favor of far more productive and far more efficient means of producing what we need. So yeah, there are probably species way more advanced than us that still had slavery way back when they were a little baby species like we are.
Mm-hmm.
I have two questions.
Leo, turn it down just a bit more because I have you turn down here from like.
If that's the down direction, my mic is turned down as far as it can go.
Go to settings in StreamYard and click on the settings and then audio.
Yeah, that's
And-
down to like 60.
Yeah, turn it down to like 40.
Yeah, that I am doing that.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. 'Cause I
Okay.
always come into a room with that set at 100, and then I let the host adjust it to where they think it needs to be.
Yeah, okay. I turned it down a bit more because I don't know. You seem to have too much. Maybe it's the Windows setting, not the. But never mind.
Yeah, I
it's
don't.
okay.
I don't.
Who hasn't spoken in a while?
Lisa?
Ale.
I haven't.
Yes. Yes.
So, I
Ale,
want
go
to-
ahead.
I want to kind of like take it a little bit back to the initial thing the freak here said, if
Sure.
if you guys don't mind. But so I believe he started with that he has personally experienced like a supernatural event from his
Mhm.
perspective. So like the only problem to me, like I won't question the freak that you had some sort of experience, but how, like a quick question, do you believe in Satan, or that you believe that there's an evil entity?
I believe God, so yes.
Okay, so how would you know that it wasn't Satan, like the one that gave you the vision, for example?
Because the love of God that I felt is undeniable, and nothing else could produce that.
Well, is Satan not capable of fooling your senses in that way, though?
Not with love like that, no.
How do
It's
you know?
impossible.
How do you know?
Yeah.
It's impossible
how
because
would you
only
know?
God could do that.
But
How do
that's
you
just
know?
a presupposition, right?
Because
You're
it
just
was God.
you're just restating the claim. Well,
Hold
Satan
on,
can't
yes.
do that.
Hold on,
How do
hold
you
on.
know? Well, God's the only one that can do that. Okay. How do you know that?
Well,
Hold
God
on.
is love, right?
He's the
What
only
does that
Christian.
even mean?
He's the
It means
only
that God is-
Christian. Hey, 1 second.
Yeah.
He's the only Christian here. Let's not like gang up on him and just like dogpile him.
No, sure.
That's
I
all right.
just want to know how he knows this. Then he said God is love. I don't even know what that means. Is God bacon? Is God a pork chop?
Bacon.
What does it mean to say God is love?
It means that
Bacon.
love is the only thing that could allow everything else. As
What
a
does
thing
that
or
mean?
as a what
Love
it
is
means
what is
no-
love what puts atoms together?
I don't know about that, but what I'm saying is nothing else could contain everything else except love.
What does that mean? Love is a container
What does it
now?
mean?
Okay. Let's try and get to a definition. What is
How many
what is your
liters
definition
can
of
love
love?
hold?
Oh, what
Love
is
the only
love?
thing that
Baby,
can
don't
allow
hurt me.
everything else.
What is your definition of love, DeFreak? What is your definition?
Love is the only thing that could allow everything else.
What does that mean?
That's
You're not
nonsense.
saying
That's a
anything.
non sequitur. That is a non sequitur. That means
That's
nothing.
my definition.
What?
What we're telling you is your definition doesn't like it. It doesn't. It doesn't
Your
make any sense. It
definition is
doesn't seem to be
meaningless.
referring to something
non
that, like, we
sequitur.
can wrap our heads around. Like, well, love is what is the reason. Yeah, like, I guess we have an answer for fucking Insane Clown Posse. Fucking magnets. How do they work? Love.
Love.
All you need is
Yeah, that's why.
love.
Yeah. What is love, baby? Don't
That's
hurt me.
that's why when two magnets stick together, they're just making sweet electromagnetic
Sweet,
love to each other.
sweet
Mhm.
love.
Sweet,
Would you
sweet
say-
magnetic love.
okay,
The
wait.
Earth and the
Would you say
moon
that
are
hate
making
is,
sweet gravitational
inclusionary or
love.
exclusionary?
What was that?
Would you say that hate is inclusive or exclusive?
I wouldn't frame hate that way. I don't really understand that.
That's, you know,
It depends on how you hate. Because if you hate just one person, that's exclusionary because you're not hating everyone else. And if you hate everyone the same way, then it's inclusionary because you're an equal opportunity offender.
Like,
I
it
hate
depends on
everybody.
the perspective you analyze it from, not really how you do it, so to speak. It just sort of depends where you analyze it from.
Well,
What
for
I'm
instance,
saying,
I mean, I can hate anchovies, right, on my pizzas. It doesn't, or somebody else could love anchovies on their pizzas. These are both acceptable uses of the word. I can hate Nazis. Is it okay to hate Nazis?
Yes.
Do you hate Nazis?
Yes. 100%.
I don't know any Nazis, so you know, what do I know? I don't think you should be killing a bunch of people, if that's what you're asking.
No.
But
Oh,
I
but God
agree.
killed a bunch of people.
I
Well,
agree.
But
Spoiler
they
alert,
killed
God
all
kills
of
everybody.
humanity at one point.
God commanded genocide totally commanded genocide.
yeah,
God inflicted
The
genocide.
Ammonites alone. I mean, kill everybody in town, including the oxen, the sheep, the ass, the kids, the adults, the women, the children.
And if you believe in the
yeah.
Bible, then you would know that what he did to Job was kind of, well, fucked up.
That was
Oh,
fucked up just to
what I
win a
was-
bet. Just to win a
Yeah,
bet with
just
the
what
devil.
a bet. Yeah.
That's what I was saying before. That I can't get past the reading of, like, for a bet, they ruined this guy's life, and even though
Yeah.
they
Killed
he
his
got-
family, burned
he
everything
got-
he
Killed
had,
his-
gave him boils. I mean, just
Hey, God.
Yeah,
tortured
like-
the
Job
guy.
only likes you because you give him so much stuff. And God was like, I bet.
hold
I
my
think you need
beer.
to
Actually, I think
you
it
need
was
to
a
bear in
pleading to
mind
Satan.
that-
It wasn't a bet per se. He was pleading for Satan's soul to repent.
No, he
it was
wasn't.
pretty much a bet.
Have you
It was a
considered my
bet.
servant Job? Basically saying, "Hey, look at Job. You know, Why
Yeah,
don't
he's
you
saying, I
pretend?
bet. And then fuck Job's
Yeah,
life
I bet.
up.
There's no
he could have
indication.
repented. He chose to say that he would physically harm him and he would curse God, but it didn't
There's-
work out that way.
yeah, but how?
Yeah,
how
you
is
fucked that
taking-
guy's life
indication-
up.
Yeah, how is
Yeah.
taking an innocent man who was just going about his life, okay, going about his life, doing his thing, okay,
And
then
praising
being-
God faithfully.
and praising God faithfully, and then being tortured, literally tortured
by the same God.
by the same God, just to prove a point. That's really what it was just to prove a point.
Yep.
How screwed up is that? How immoral? I mean, that's nasty. I mean, would
want
you
to make a-
torture someone else? Would you, as an individual, torture someone else to the brink of death, kill their family, burn everything they have, okay, torture them with disease just to prove a point to somebody else that was not involved with you at all? Would you do that personally?
It'd be fucked up.
I would.
I mean, it'd be like-
would you do that personally?
That's the
That
way
is
you're
my
seeing
question.
It, though. That's
No,
the
no,
way
no.
you're seeing it, though. He was pleading for Satan's soul.
It
when he
doesn't
was
matter.
asking
I'm
that.
saying, as an individual, as a person, would you yourself do that to someone else that you didn't even know?
No, because I don't
Hey-
have the
hey,
power
man.
to know
No,
what
because
was gonna
you
happen.
have better morals than your God.
Your kid only
You're-
loves
just-
you because
you're
you like
better.
give them food and you treat them well and you're such a good parent. Your kid only loves you for that. And then dad goes, I bet, and just starts beating the shit out of his child every night. Like that's
What
what
do
this
you-
really is.
Why do
It's-
you think that this is all about morality? By the way, you think
Yeah.
this
who
is
said
all
who
about
said
morality?
anything about morality? Who said
It's
anything
not.
about
It's
morality?
not about
So-
morality.
Who said anything about
I want to
morality
make
but
a-
you?
I want to make a point here, may I?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because De Freak is convinced that the character in the Book of Job is Satan. If you read the original, it is Al Shaitan. It is the adversary.
The adversary.
The opposer.
This is an angelic presence. We're not even clear that it's the same entity that is being referred to. It is somebody in the heavenly community whose job it was to challenge God. That was his job. Its job. Sorry, I should say.
Now,
that's
one,
right.
So
one
the theological interpretation that you're
go ahead.
I'm just saying that the Freak's theological interpretation there that it's Satan, the prince of hell, is actually not true. That's Al Shaitan, the adversary, and you need to look at the context there, because you've come to a completely erroneous interpretation of that book and its meaning based on a
I don't think
misidentification
so,
of one of the
because
characters.
he says he's walking to and fro in the earth. So where's his heavenly presence? It's not
The heavenly
existent at that
heavenly presence was moving with him. Like, if God can go there, then his counselors can go there too.
So
Who says that angels? Who says that angels can't walk on earth?
He said
I beg
from
your pardon?
coming to and fro in the earth, right?
Yeah, angels.
So my
angels
claim or my
routinely visit Earth.
misinterpretation is not that misinterpreted.
Angels routinely
Really?
visit Earth, mate.
Mm-hmm. And another important part of that particular story is that Job actually got to speak to God. So after that, then he wasn't no longer going on faith that his life was great and then it just sucked. So that makes it like even more complicated, because everyone is asked to believe without evidence, just trusting the gospel and having faith and that kind of stuff. And then they give me an example of a guy that literally spoke to God. That makes it hard for me.
I understand, and you're right. That's I was the same way. Believe me, I'm a science guy. I like, I love Star Trek. I always was into like AP science classes. I'm into that stuff. And I needed to see him before I would believe him. I was just lucky enough he revealed himself to me, and that's how my faith is unshakable. That's the only reason.
How
Was
can
it-
you? How can
I'll
Someone,
All right.
1 second. When you were telling that story, the chat was wondering if there were any kinds of drugs involved.
No drugs.
So
Okay.
I want to tell a story. When I was in hospital, I dislocated my little finger, and as it was being relocated, I lost consciousness, and I had a dream that I was in an incredibly warm and loving garden, a walled garden, and there was just this glowing ball of love, just undiluted love, directed towards me, and I felt absolutely amazing. And then I regained consciousness. I had fainted. So my question to you, De Freak, is how would you distinguish what you experienced and your hiccuping because of lack of oxygen, or some sort of chemical interaction, or some other physiological or neurochemical process? How would you distinguish between the two?
I would say it was your spiritual condition, and you cut out a little bit there towards the end, but it's
Mhm.
definitely your spiritual condition, and whether or not you had faith in Jesus Christ, and whether or not you were even seeking God, because at that point in time, that's what I was doing.
But the problem here is that many people that aren't Christians and that believe in many other religions have experienced this same sort of thing. Like, maybe not exactly the same imagery like you described, but the feeling that you described, I've heard many other people describe it. Some that don't even believe in any religion, they're just spiritual, like the electric universe or that sort of thing. So how do you know yours is the actually true instead of the others?
I'm not saying that theirs are false. I'd have to hear their testimony first of all.
I once, and Zumi, I don't know, their mic is, her mic, sorry, is being weird, but she said this. Yeah, God also revealed himself to me through a 6-headed snake. I was on ayahuasca at the time. I once took 10 drops of LSD and I saw, yes, 10 drops of LSD, like from the dropper.
Yeah.
Like I was,
Wow.
I was insane. And I
Under the
saw,
tongue or
Is something? Okay, there it goes.
no, we in water, and then I drank the water. I saw. I lay down on the floor after I had played music for like 3 hours. Lay down on the floor, started looking at the sky, perfectly blue sky, and then I started seeing faint clouds form, and they made like a man with a head of an elephant and like 6 arms, standing on a door with all kinds of symbols. But like I was super high. That's the only ever
Yeah.
experience I've had of that type. And I've done a shit ton of drugs.
Yeah,
And I wasn't lying about the ayahuasca thing. I really did see a 6-headed snake that called itself God.
Yeah.
Wow. Like the
I've
craziest.
also done LSD and other like mushrooms and stuff, so I know the difference between that experience and my God experience.
And that difference would be?
One was by the drugs and one was God.
And how do you know that God doesn't reach people through drugs?
Well, maybe he does,
Okay, so then what would the
can-
difference be in that case?
The difference is you're not going to actually see God because you're not in a pure spiritual form to be able to do that. You have to be.
What
You have to be.
what is a pure spiritual form? Is that like
In other words, if it's
when
an
you concentrate a soul
artificial,
or something?
if it's an artificial means of accessing Him, you're not going to see. You're not going to.
Yeah,
see
but drugs. But what if it's not artificial? What if it's all natural drugs?
Same thing, because you're inducing it artificially.
Well,
How are you inducing it artificially?
That doesn't mean your mind wouldn't expand or something like that, but you're not going to see the God.
Okay, I have a couple simple clarifying questions for you. One, how did you eliminate all other possibilities other than God? How did you eliminate all of them, like hallucination, altered mind states, anything like that? Okay, how did you conclusively eliminate them for this feeling? And two, how did you know it was specifically this one deity? I'm guessing, I think it's Christianity, right? How did you know it was specifically this specific God? How did you do those two things? Because that's very important.
All right. The event only happened once, so that's how I can eliminate any hallucinations or any chemical or whatever. It happened one time and not many times.
That's
And
not really a,
Okay, so you have a
no,
sample
okay.
size of one. It hasn't happened
Right.
again. So
Right.
you and is there any way that you could repeat it?
I don't think so. He was in control. I had nothing to do with it. Other than right before it happened, I was praying to him.
Right. Okay, but how did
Okay,
you
so
eliminate?
that's
How did
another-
you
That's
eliminate?
another thing that distinguishes.
Okay,
that
but
you're looking
how
for.
did you specifically? How did you eliminate an altered mind state because of medical issues, drugs, alcohol, anything else? How did you 100% eliminate that? How did you eliminate all other possibilities?
Because I was perfectly sober at that point in time, and I've never had that experience since then. So,
Okay, right.
most schizophrenics will have multiple.
By which way
events.
did you do that? By which way did you eliminate all the other possibilities that
Like
could
I said, it was
falsify that
the-
experience?
It was the love of God, and I've never had that experience since then. If I had it more than once, then it'd be reason to say he's schizophrenic or something, but it hasn't happened again.
but for
Okay.
example,
Nobody is suggesting you're schizophrenic.
No.
I believed in God for 30 years, mate.
Okay.
Nobody is claiming that you're mentally ill.
No.
What we're claiming is that the human mind can convince itself of things,
Yes.
particularly things that it wants to be true. And to be brutally honest, I'm not entirely certain that that I'm happy going here, because if you're happy in your faith, that's good for you. I mean,
Yeah, and that's fine.
If it brings you happiness, that's fine. We're just asking questions about how you can have eliminated other possibilities, but we're also letting you know that you shouldn't be making didactic pronouncements on the basis of you had an experience once. Do you accept that?
I know that my experience really doesn't matter to anyone else, but I do try to answer questions that people don't seem to always have a good answer for.
That's
And
fine.
I think that I've gained that by witnessing him.
Okay, here's an important element to me, and it's one of the reasons that I disagree violently with Max. I don't think that somebody who is advocating anti-abortion laws should be gone easy on. Will Duffy advances anti-abortion legislation. It's unethical, it's immoral, and the only effect it will have will be to kill people. That's all that anti-abortion laws do.
Mhm.
Do you
Is
agree?
killing people.
Pardon?
Is killing people.
Anti-abortion laws are killing people.
Yes, like
Yeah.
in Texas.
Okay. Yes, I'll
Yeah.
accept that correction. So do you accept that your religion is not a basis for designing legislation?
I can't 100% say that. I'm pro-choice, by the way, up to a certain amount of time. Like, you shouldn't be doing it at the
Sure.
late trimester. But how can you say that?
Can I ask you a question about that?
Religion shouldn't directly affect policy, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, that's
I believe
exactly
there
what
should be
I'm saying.
separation.
But-
Yes.
So the point I just want to make before I finish up, and I'll let the other questioner come in. The law is not designed for any group to impose their morality on another group. It's designed to allow society to work. It's not a tool for imposing moral absolutes. It's a tool for allowing society to function. And a lot of religious people seem to think that it's a tool for them to take their religious beliefs and enshrine and preserve them, and indeed instill them in other people who don't share them. And that's completely wrong. That's the wrong understanding of what laws are and how society works. That's all I wanted to say. Anyway, carry on.
I made in my opening against Jim Bob, I made the point that legislating with any kind of theocracy that takes charge usually ends up with like worse results for everyone involved in the society, especially if they are of a different persuasion. So we get like denomination persecution, we get calling other people heretics and all this kind of stuff, as well as going backwards in regards to social conquests that took a lot of time to get done, like gay marriage, now with the heavy crusade against trans people and all of that. It's like we're taking steps back when we should be taking steps forward. And the other thing is, how can we trust something that was written 2,000 years ago to give us morality on, for example, the development of generalized AI? What if one day we actually create consciousness? Are we allowed to just abuse it because it's a machine, or do we have to give it some kind of moral consideration? How can we delegate that to the Bible or any religious text? I don't think we can.
I would argue that we can't, because the Bible is inherently out of date. But the one last question, last point to bring this round to Will Duffy. Will Duffy does agitate for anti-abortion laws.
I don't
does
even know who
argue
that is, by the
that his
way.
theological principle should be a basis for law. I understand that you don't, but Max does. And he was saying we should go gently on. We should go gently on Will because Will is nice. Will is nice, but he is also exactly the sort of person who is convinced in his own correctness sufficiently strongly to legislate that his religion should be instilled and maintained, even on those who don't share it, because he regards atheism as inherently irrational. And he regards atheists as inherently irrational. And I think that given that's true, we should treat him with extreme caution, because that degree of self-assurance and moral conviction are extraordinarily dangerous.
Okay, I think that you have a bit more information, because I never heard him say that atheists are irrational. I just
Then you should
found-
watch the debate that I had with the discussion I had with him on 8 out of 10 Cats, where he talks about how so far he's been giving atheists a pass as far as their atheism is concerned. We were discussing geochronology. Whether or not I'm an atheist is irrelevant to geochronology.
Correct.
But he's making a point. But his point was that in future discussions, he intends to hold up atheism. He doesn't think that in his own words, he describes atheism as a non-starter. He regards it, and he dismisses it just out of hand as irrational.
Hey,
A
Max.
belief, and
Interesting.
he took the same attitude. If you go back and you listen to his introductory comments, particularly with Aaron Ra, he takes the same attitude. And while he's a very nice person, he's a very respectful individual. He's got some convictions, a combination of convictions and arrogance that make him quite worrying. Anyway, I need to go. Thank you for having me on.
I'll definitely check it out, and I'll share the link, because I have it say, oh shoot, I pasted it twice, so let me do that again. I'll share that link. Thank you so much for coming on, Tony. It's always a pleasure to see you. Leo, you said Max. What can I help you with?
You want to set up a discussion between me and Will?
And
we can
Will,
talk about atheism? Yeah.
I
I can show him how atheism is not a non-starter. I mean, obviously, I don't know if he'd be interested in that, but I don't know how to contact him, so.
Give me an email and we can see if that works. Put it in the private chat, and I'll try to set that up. I've been trying since the final experiment. I've been trying to get an interview for the interview series I was doing on the trip itself about the final experiment, and I haven't got a response from him yet. But David is right. He's kind of hard to get. A lot of people want to talk to him.
I think he's making an irrational claim, because unless you're born a believer, like out of the womb, like how did he come to the knowledge of anything? It sounds like a lot of presupposition to me.
Yeah, it might be. I don't know. I wouldn't call religion. I used to call religion irrational. I wouldn't do that now, really. But to say, I wouldn't also accept someone saying that atheism is irrational. It's
No.
not.
I think it
No,
depends how it's handled, because I would say religion is irrational if you claim like certain certainties about things. But it's just like you saying, well, this is what I believe, and it's just what the explanation I like, the explanation I believe it because I like it. I don't think there's anything bad with that. But yeah, I think it's irrational when you assume certain things that certain things are true without any evidence to back it up.
I'm not sure myself what it means for a position to be rational or irrational. Rational or irrational refers to the behavior of agents and whether or not the actions and the behaviors that they engage in are in accord or out of accord with that person's desires. So
Mhm.
if somebody is a theist because they think they should be a theist, then I don't know what it would mean to say that they're irrational.
Right.
I
No,
think
well,
that
it's a
okay.
kind of like if it makes sense or if it doesn't. If it's like it gets tricky because sometimes people use it as, oh, you have that position because of an emotional kind of a thing and not a rational
Mhm.
one. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I would
tough.
just say these people don't understand what rationality is referring to.
Right.
In fact, and people can call me maybe a little conceited for saying this. I only am saying it because I genuinely think it's true that most people don't know what rationality really is as a concept, and its relation to things like normativity and reasoning.
I believe the biological narrative is first and foremost in the mind of any person. That being food and shelter, water, your basic needs. And so atheism is not irrational. Go ahead.
No, I don't think it. The only positions that are irrational are, in general, I would say that are, for example, if you would be like an eco-terrorist, like we should exterminate humans to save the planet. That literally makes no sense. It's like
I would,
why
s-
would
Yeah.
you,
I
if
would
we are
say,
not humans anymore, why would you want to save the planet?
For non-human animal species and plant
It's
species.
like fuck them.
I would say, young Earth creationism would be just on the same line as flat Earth when it comes to rationality. That's
I
it.
would
They're both
agree with that.
heavily irrational.
Leo, would you say that flat Earth is irrational or
No, I don't
they're
know what it
wrong?
means for positions to be rational or irrational because I take
Okay.
rationality to be something that applies to agents, not to positions,
Mhm.
as most
That's a fair
philosophers
point.
understand rationality.
I'm
That's a
curious,
fair point.
how would you define rational then? Like, what
Um,
are you meaning exactly?
So, rationality, again, is going to deal with the actions, the behaviors that an agent engages in, and whether or not those actions or behaviors are in accord or out of accord with that person's desires or that person's preferences. So, if you are hungry, you know that you should eat to satisfy your hunger. You have the ability to eat to satisfy your hunger. You want to eat to satisfy your hunger, but you just don't. You just don't.
Okay,
Then that's irrational. Now, if there are reasons why you're not eating, say all the food around you is poisonous, doesn't matter how one would know that, that's not relevant, then you're not rational because it is in virtue of knowing that all the food around you is poison that you ought not eat. And so your lack of eating is thereby in accord with your
Yeah.
desire, you're behaving rationally.
To
But if your
Um,
desire is to eat and you want to eat but you just don't, then your behavior is out of accord with your desire and you would be behaving irrationally. So the position that somebody holds has nothing to do with whether that person is rational. If holding that position is what that person has concluded they ought to do, all things considered, then they're behaving rationally. They might be wrong, very, very wrong, but they're still
Right.
rational.
So,
okay, I'll modify my position then to say that they're illogical and not irrational.
illogical. Yeah, that might
So,
make sense.
personally-
Coffee, one sec. Coffee
So-
breath. How are you, buddy? Good to see you. I hope you and your family are doing great. Says you can hold atheism. You can hold to atheism irrationally, and you can hold to religion irrationally.
That's correct. If you're holding for them for no reason at all, say, that would be irrational because what you're doing is not in accord with any reasons that you have.
So, like, in my personal opinion, I think you're just defining it like the same way most people do, only you're tackling it from another perspective. Because at the end of the day, if you have, like, if it's in accordance with your desires, it's because you have a certain, you have a certain logic or way of thinking that led you to the conclusion of why these actions aligns with your desire or not. So I think rational just means like logically coherent, and I think that describes what you just said and what most people mean by rational instead of emotional.
It's pretty good.
Well, so I don't know what it means to say that rationality just means like for something to be irrational just means it's logically incoherent because rationality isn't a logical principle. If something's logically incoherent, I just take that to mean that it violates some law or principle of logic. Like the concept of a married bachelor is logically incoherent to me.
Right, because they are contradictory.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe like just it's like my lack of vocabulary or something, but like I mean that in the sense that your premises lead to your conclusion, that they make sense and lead to your premises lead to the conclusion. Yeah, that's basically what rationality is, in my opinion.
I think that that's what validity is because I think that when your conclusion follows from your premises, that is something in logic and that it quite frankly has nothing to do with rationality. If a conclusion in an argument, in a deductive argument, logically draws from the premises stated, that's what validity is. That argument is a valid argument.
Mm-hmm.
I also, in the private chat, I posted an article from the Philosophy Now magazine, What Is It to Be Rational, that sort of talks about rationality the way that I am, the way that most philosophers would talk about rationality as being related more to what it is that agents do and whether or not they have reasons for doing that.
Wait, I never made you mod. Send a chat so I can do that now.
Leo Pillis, what school of philosophy do you ascribe to?
What do you mean by school of philosophy?
Which philosophers do you follow? Like classic Greek philosophers?
I don't really like follow specific philosophers, but if you're asking whether I'm analytic or continental, analytic. Continental philosophy to me is just fancy literature.
Yeah, I'm more of an Epicurean myself. Follow the teachings of Epicurus and Marcus Aurelius.
Interesting. Leo, send a chat in the YouTubes so I can make you mod because I don't know why I never did. All right. It's a little bit late. So what I'm going to do, we're going to go around, give a final thoughts. Let's try not to get into more debate. Let me special thank the freak who stood like a trooper, getting a little bit grilled by a whole bunch of us filthy atheists. But the freak, thank you so much for coming.
The freak is great. The freak is awesome.
The freak's
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
I love you, man.
He's good mannered. You know, we might disagree, but I think he's a good guy.
Yeah.
I like seeing him around, and I hope I
Yes.
continue to.
Oh yeah,
Yes, and-
I'll try and make it back up on the panel and stuff. You know, the atheists are a lot more fun to hang out with than the Christians who just want to always argue about, you know, like different factions and stuff. So
Yeah, there ain't no love quite like Christian love. Hey, there ain't no hate quite like Christian love.
I
Yeah.
haven't heard that in a while. Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I was gonna say something about Matt Delahanty's, you know, his thing with the, you know, but I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna let it go, and I'm kind of hungry, so I'm just gonna say goodbye, and I'll see you soon.
Oh, thank you so much for coming.
Great to talk to you again, man. Take care of yourself.
It was
Great meeting
fun.
you.
The freak has been a supporter of the channel for a long time, so thank you. And it's cool. I think everyone also behaved and we didn't dogpile him, which is also good. So congratulations and thank you so much for keeping up the environment to everyone. So Leo went away. Let's start with Ale. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think like I also agree with you, Max, that maybe Matt could have been less aggressive about like the whole debate. Like maybe Tony is right in the sense that you shouldn't go easy on him, but I think like there's a difference between going easy on someone and treating someone well, because maybe that's just how Tony defines going easy. But going easy would be like conceding points, like in my view, in regards to Will. Like you can be polite, but you can refute all his points, like show how it contradicts, like holding his feet to the fire in terms of argumentation. But that doesn't necessarily mean you have to be rude or scream or things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Matt would benefit a little from actually engaging more in good faith in a conversation. I get maybe it's like because he has engaged with so many Christians and apologists, and sadly, at least from what I've seen, so many of them are such horrible people. Even the ones that sound like sort of kind or calm, they are just like they have this way of
Very
teasing
dishonest.
people in a very soft way. Like it seems they're speaking nicely, but they're not. They're saying horrible things. But yeah, that.
Well, we don't hate the people. We just hate their sin.
Yeah, basically.
Fuck up, you fucking get the fuck out of here with that bullshit.
And yeah, that's about it for me.
All right, thank you so much. Zumi, any final words?
Yeah, I think Matt did the right thing. The way went around it the right way, and he just kept his feet Duffy's feet to the fire. And well, YEC is kind of dumb anyway, so yeah.
Very dumb, ultra dumb.
Yeah, but thanks for having me on. It's great to be on.
Anytime. Thank you for coming on. Colorado Biker, I saw that you were sharing with us a bottle of a little something. What are you drinking tonight?
Tonight, well, I needed some after this discussion, so sorry. I needed I needed it when I'm doing these chats. Okay, this is Law's Whiskey House straight rye whiskey, finished in Curacao cask. So it's got a nice kind of
What cask?
Curacao.
Yeah, it's a orange liqueur. So it's finished. So it's a really nice rye whiskey with a hint of orange. It's
I'm not
lovely.
a fan of rye whiskey. I like my bourbon. I was
You
born
like bourbon?
and raised in
Yeah,
Iowa.
yeah.
I was
Yeah,
born and
bourbon
raised in
too.
Iowa. I live in Iowa. I'm surrounded by corn everywhere all the time.
Oh
I
yeah.
like corn
Oh
whiskey.
yeah. Well,
Like Luke Bryan once said, rain makes corn and corn
Yep.
makes whiskey.
corn makes whiskey, and that's good stuff too. Well, check out Laws. They're a local distillery here in Colorado, and they've got some really good bourbons that you would probably like. So I think they have a port cask finish bourbon that is lovely. So yeah, I just kind of need to, I don't drink often, but when
I
I
would
do,
be a- I would be a
I go for
whiskey
the good stuff.
connoisseur.
go
Yeah,
for
I
the
would
good
be a
stuff.
whiskey connoisseur if I could afford to be a whiskey.
Yeah, well, I barely can. So, and the wife is asking for some. Well, demanding more like.
But it really is hard to beat a really good whiskey. Like there are like a good Scotch.
Yeah.
Oh, good Glenfiddich. Oh my god.
Oh, actually,
Don't ever
Vintage
drink Jack
30.
Daniels. That's not whiskey.
No,
I don't know
that's-
what
that's
the
for
fuck
degrease.
it is.
That's what
I
I
don't
use for
know what it is
degreasing. That's what I use for
Cheap horse
degreasing the
piss?
chain on one of my motorcycles.
Yeah,
That's all
Jack
it's good
Daniels,
for.
Jack Daniels is
Yeah, Jack Daniels is just ass.
Wait,
You know what other whiskey I really don't like?
What?
Jameson. I think it tastes like shit.
Decent.
Irish whiskey. Yeah,
Decent.
it's hard to find. a really
Redbreast
good
is better than Jameson.
Yeah,
if I'm
by
going
far.
For like an
Yeah,
Irish
yeah,
whiskey.
yeah.
Another
Maybe
one that's really good is
say-
Glenfiddich. Glenfiddich
Glenfiddich's
is
my favorite.
Yep.
Glenfiddich,
I
I
like.
used to drink with coffee every morning.
let me just say, you're
I love
all
Kragan
wrong.
more.
Alcohol sucks and weed rules.
Oh no!
I mean,
I'm
yes,
with you there.
they
Dude,
both
I'm in
rule,
Colorado, man.
Well, they're both awesome.
I'm in Colorado, man. I've got all sorts. No, there's nothing like a nice joint and a nice.
I
pot and
enjoy-
a nice glass of whiskey and a blizzard.
enjoy a good red wine with my steak. Enjoy a nice fat hog leg after.
There you
my
go.
favorite,
Right
and my,
on.
and my guilty pleasure used to be Pepsi and Crown Royal. So
Ooh, oh, ow.
Crown Royal. I gotta be honest. The flavored ones, for the most part, aren't bad. But I'm not the biggest. I've never been the biggest fan of Crown either.
No, it's
What?
not a bad Canadian whiskey, but there's a lot better Canadian whiskeys out there. A lot.
Right.
yeah, but
better.
it's the cheapest.
Not that I don't enjoy this talk of debauchery and different.
Okay. One question: indica or sativa?
Sativa.
Indica.
Indica.
Yeah, indica puts me to sleep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I smoke
In the
indica
couch.
at night.
Sativa's
Yeah, exactly.
Sativa's my favorite.
That-
The
that's-
clean
'cause
your
I-
house dope. Clean your house dope. Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. And then
Everybody's
indica
always
is
like,
in the
"Oh, these-
couch.
Yeah.
All these stoners just sitting around all day. Well, I don't know what you're smoking, buddy, but that is ain't me.
But
No.
sometimes I'll go for a hybrid. Sometimes I will.
Yeah,
go for a
hybrids are
hybrid.
nice. If you get a nice one, it's you get a little bit of both, and it's nice. But yeah, a nice blizzard outside, a roaring fire in the wood stove, and a glass of really good whiskey is a great way to ride out a blizzard with no electricity. And a
A
good
couple
book.
of fat hog legs, and I was
Yeah.
just about to say,
Oh
And
god.
a good book. Yep.
preferably something in analytic philosophy.
Okay. You do that. You do that. I go after stuff more like I was just rereading this, The Crowd by Gustave Le Bon, which is about kind of psychology kind of thing. It's about group mind, group think, the how groups of people think and how they work as a group. Stuff like that. Like propaganda, public relations by Edward Bernays. I read nerd shit. So anyway, and philosophy would be nerd shit too, and I applaud you, my good man. So anyway, but to get back on the point, Max, thank you so much for letting me come in here. That was fun. I do love DeFreak. He's one of the few that, he sticks to his guns and he says what he says and he's behind it. And hey, that's great. You believe whatever you want to believe.
Yeah.
And what I think is critical about him is that he's willing to listen to opposing points of view and the criticisms of what he believes. I think that's a lot, because there's a lot of people that just shut down immediately. They get angry or they shut down. It becomes total denial. But he's willing to engage, even when it's challenging his personal beliefs. And I think that takes a lot of guts. So big credit to him. And thank you for letting me come in and pester the shit out of everybody. Love you all, guys. So,
Thanks
and
so much.
PhD Tony, bye. I love seeing you again. He's a lot of fun. So,
Yeah.
okay, that's it for me.
Thanks
More
so much.
whiskey.
Take it easy, buddy.
Leo. Final thoughts?
Yes. Just to kind of write off of Colorado Bikers coattails there. I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but I think that Max and Issa, if he's there, would agree with me that I'm not always the easiest person to try to have a conversation with. And it's not because I'm like obtuse or that I obfuscate, but I mean, I know my way around a discussion. But DeFreak
Kenny.
is not, that doesn't seem to like put him off like it does other people. He'll just answer the question. It might not be a good answer, but at least he's giving me an answer and not fucking gallivanting somewhere that's completely fucking unrelated to the discussion I'm trying to have. Because that just irritates the piss out of me, as everybody that knows me is probably well aware of. I don't like people who don't answer questions. And I'm known for asking relatively direct questions.
Relatively? Relatively?
Relative, yeah.
That's funny. Sorry.
He's biting me. I don't like.
He loves you.
I don't like.
What's your
when people
cat's
don't-
name, Max?
It's Cat.
Yeah, it's Kat. K-A-T, right?
No, C.
See? Oh, you usually see. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not calling your cat that. Give me a fucking name, man.
Yeah. Name is Cat.
His name is Pat.
Yes, because
Give him a name before I give him a name, okay?
I speak Spanish, so here, if I say the
Gato.
cat's name is Cat, no one sees it as redundant.
You know
No.
what his name should be, because he's a ball of white fluff.
Yes.
8 Ball.
No.
Call him 8 Ball. Yeah.
Oh god. Wow.
8 Ball. I'm calling him 8 Ball from every time I see that cat. I'm gonna be like 8 Ball.
No, but don't like. Look, I've had problems with ladies because my turtle doesn't have a name, because he's a turtle, and if you call him, he doesn't come. So it's pointless to name him.
Call him John.
Your
And-
turtle
John's a good
doesn't
turtle
know what it's
name.
called?
And I've had
weird.
ladies try to, who are the ones that I regularly invite to my house, come and tell me, oh, but why doesn't he have a name? And they try to name my turtle. So like, don't try to name my pets. The cat's name is Cat. The turtle
Ball.
has no names,
John.
and that's the end of it.
Los nombres de gata es cat.
Yes.
So that
Tango un gato.
that why in Spanish it doesn't. My wife is Argentinian, okay?
That was
Oh,
almost Spanish.
oh, that's cool.
Well, it's Castilian Spanish instead of mestizo Spanish. But anyway,
Tengo un gato grande en mis pantalones.
That's
You have a
cool.
giant cat in your pants?
your
What you kinky bitch? You
Damn.
kinky bitch. What are you doing?
That's from a movie. I cannot for the life of me remember the name of the movie. But
Okay.
oh my god.
Max,
Who was the actor? It's a black actor that does that part. Is it Martin Lawrence? Anyway, I wanted to finish my my little
Oh,
Yeah,
my
sorry.
little spiel here. This
Blue
is my
streak.
time. This is my time. I'm fucking this cat. Y'all are holding its
Blue
tail,
streak.
okay?
Blue streak.
What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, you know, Max. Some of us like to drink. Okay, buddy. All right. That's kind of my thing.
You're
okay?
wrong,
I
but
drink and
okay.
I know things. That's what I do. Okay. I'm
Yeah.
just not like I'm not a dwarf, but I do drink and I do know things. I am small. I'm only 5'8", but that doesn't qualify as a dwarf. So I'm not a dwarf. I'm not an imp. Okay.
Okay.
And I don't have whores. No. That's nasty. That's
Oh.
gross as fuck. Brother.
Oh,
Again,
Leo,
those are
Blue
two
streak.
things which are wrong. In drinking
I
alcohol.
don't know
and
what blue
smoking
streak
before.
is.
That's the name of the movie you were looking for.
Oh, thank you very, very much. That is, I have not seen that movie in ages.
I haven't either. It just reminded me of whenever you said that. It reminded
Yeah.
me. Just popped right in my head. Blue streak.
All right. Anything else for the final thoughts, or were those all of the thoughts?
Issa,
Uh,
Issa,
yeah,
are you there?
I think Isa might have fallen asleep, possibly in his suit, or
He was wearing a suit.
He was wearing a
yes, he was
suit, yeah.
wearing a suit because he got a prize and a scholarship today from his university. So we're really
What
proud
university?
of Pennsylvania.
What?
Yeah, I got an award.
Yeah, he got an award.
Congratulations.
He got a
Issa.
scholarship. He got a scholarship to the University of Pennsylvania.
Yes,
Yeah.
Right on.
The University of Pennsylvania.
Yes.
I think so.
The Ivy League school.
Hold on, I have a window.
That's
here.
just fucking badass.
Hold on, one moment, because I did make him big. Oh, here. Let me share this to you. 1 second. Oh no, this was when I went to toilet. Oh, here we go. Oh no, Community College of not Pennsylvania, Philadelphia.
God damn it.
Oh, pencil. Yeah.
God damn it. I was so excited.
Oh,
I-
A
but
friend
stop
that
it.
was going to an Ivy League school.
But it may not be Ivy
It's
League,
still
but
a
it's still
college.
like a college and scholarship and that kind of thing. And he goes
No,
like
it's still badass. I don't want to make it out like it's
outstanding
not still super
performance.
badass.
That's
But
the
you got
only
me
thing
really
I can
excited
get-
there, man.
The only thing I could get outstanding performance if degeneracy was a sport, but unfortunately, it's not. So congratulations, Isa. We're super proud
You
of
mean
you.
to tell me you're not good at passing joints like batons out of track meet?
I prefer pipes.
I could probably
even though I can
win
roll.
an award there.
I prefer edibles.
Bongs.
Edibles. I prefer edibles.
Bongs.
So
No.
If you're
Okay.
gonna
I
smoke
prefer
flower,
flower.
it's got to be a bong.
If the people who drink are incorrect, drinking is awful, and the people who say edibles is like weed. God created weed to be smoked. That's why
Yes.
it's so
From
delicious
pipes.
and pretty. You're
It's
Yeah,
fun
just-
for the
smell,
feel.
the flavor. You
It's
missed all that in
pretty.
edible.
yeah. Who-
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
the taste. I like the taste of the weed. I like to smoke
Yeah.
a bowl and be like, this plant, this like grass that I'm smoking tastes like fucking peaches.
Yeah.
How not peaches in there? Peaches
All right.
in there. Terpenes is how.
Terpenes, yes, that's
Yep.
for like the flavors and that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So I do think that Matt Dillahunty went hard on it. I will have to check the
When
video
does he
that
not?
the video
not hard
that
enough.
Tony sent. But I agree that even though I would go hard on Will with the arguments, not with the the way that I speak. I think he's completely wrong on young earth creationism. I think his views on abortion, if he doesn't allow abortion, like we heard him say, that is detrimental to society. And if your goal is to reduce abortion, what Uruguay did is the best way to go, because that actually resulted in a net reduction of abortion, and 0 women died from Bacali abortions after we made it legal, which is a plus, especially if you care about, if the argument is, oh yeah, we need humans birth rate and that kind of stuff. You would want women not to die because they're the ones that bear children. So yeah.
Well, see, with the
Max.
no, never mind. I'm not gonna get a whole abortion thing because that's a whole other.
Max,
That would be an hour long.
Max, you're
Yes.
familiar with smoking flower?
Yes,
Right.
I am. I
Yeah,
am.
the Freedom House said yes, weed can be mouth-watering. No,
That is correct. Yes.
weed does the opposite. Weed takes away
Wait,
the water in your mouth.
Well,
Have
it
you
actually,
ever been
Cotton mouth,
high
man. I
before?
got cotton mouth bad.
it actually does two things, because when you're getting ready, it gets you like you're but I don't say that it makes my mouth water. I said it makes my lungs water, and it's a funny expression. It's funnier in Spanish though.
Makes my
Um,
lungs twitch. I'm just working my lungs out. Like I was at the gym earlier. I got a really good day and a really good bicep day. Fucking A, right. And that's how I work out my lungs. It's hard to cut my chest.
let me finish my little thing.
Go ahead.
So
Yeah, I'm the one that runs the show here.
I would push back against Will, but since he's nice, I think I can. It wouldn't be like, I don't know, talking to Jim Bob or like when I talked with Nathan Thompson. Like I wouldn't do that. But yes, some of the views are detrimental. Some of the views are way more nuanced than a lot of people think, and also counterintuitive, like the fact that if when we allowed abortion in Uruguay, just after 2 years, it was a net reduction, but we did something comprehensive. We give sexual education, we give free
control.
contraception and psychological support, because it's a very traumatic experience. So when someone has their abortion and they go through all of that, they usually learn that how to prevent that from happening again, which is awesome.
Max, I do have a legitimate question for you when you're done.
Yes. No, go ahead.
So your country, is it Uruguay or is it Uruguay? Like more of an H than a G, or more of a G?
No, it's a full G. Uruguay.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I had that right when I go to pronounce it.
Yes.
Because that's how I
Or-
have been pronouncing it, Uruguay.
Or you can steal a 20-year-old joke from The Simpsons and say you're a gay, and we can all laugh at it. I will point out that it's a 20-year-old joke from The Simpsons, so The Simpsons did it.
Yeah. The
And
Simpsons did it
Ricardo,
first.
Simpsons did it first.
Uruguay naman!
I think somebody sitting above me is, unless they're standing, I don't know, is familiar with South Park.
Yeah. And Colorado, I wanted to tell you that Max V is from Argentina,
Strong.
and I'm next to.
Oh, Max is in Argentina. Right on.
No, well, no,
That's-
he is from Argentina. Right now, he's in Singapore.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Singapore.
Yes. Singapore, yes. And then we also have Ricardo, who is also from Uruguay. And yeah. All right. There won't be any debate in MDD for like 2 weeks, so we will have to make our own fun. And
Let's see if Will wants to have a conversation with me about
oh
atheism.
yes, I did send that email. We'll see if we can get that going. I'm
And it
also
doesn't have to be a debate. It can just be, like just an
like
informal
a talk, a chat
discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also have potentially, I'm trying to see when we can schedule it, a debate with a pre-supper and see where that goes.
That would be fun.
Oh, definitely. And
Predictable.
Yes.
Especially predictable.
And then I don't know what else. We will have to, like, 2 weeks of content is a lot. Oh, yes, I know what else. April 19th, 24-hour stream from 11:59 on Friday until 11:59 on Saturday night, because it's my birthday. I'm turning 37. So
Damn, youngin.
I'm going to be spending it with
Damn,
all of
youngin.
you. I will probably
Good.
be smoking weed throughout the whole thing, because I don't know if I can actually get it. And it's my birthday, so sue me.
Cheers. Cheers.
Yes. So I will be doing that 24-hour stream. I'm planning like some activities to do together. And of course, because it's my birthday and I haven't smoked in a while, I will be smoking weed. So who knows? I might have to, like,
It's a nice looking bubbler.
I might have to stop the stream because I got too high and I can't continue hosting. So who knows what will happen? So thank you everyone for doing that. Before we go, make sure to do a social thing. Is like, share, subscribe, send this to a friend, send this to your significant other. Go to the corner, use the corner of your street, and just subscribe to Matters Now.
And if
Thank
you don't,
everyone. Yes.
and if you don't, we're sending Kent Hovind and Ray Comfort to your house just to torture
Ew.
you.
And if you
So
don't,
you better
go
hit that
Captain
like
Bob.
button and subscribe, damn it.
Yes. Do that. Do that
If you
because it's
don't-
my birthday next week.
If you don't go, Captain Bob is gonna come back there and kick your ass.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Love you so much. And out of watching like a very short clip, we turned it into like a 4-hour live stream. So that's efficacy. Thank you, guys. We'll see you when
Got the
we
club
see you. I
going
have
up on a
no idea.
Tuesday.
Yes, sir. Take care. Have a good night.